Hi, I'm Madhav. I lead marketing at Storyline. I've created a LinkedIn video series, which is getting 100x more views than most of our webinars and podcasts. And we've been running it for about 9 weeks, and it's already started to show it in our sales pipeline, and it's really kind of growing our brand. And so the way it works is we figure out, first, bunch of topics and themes, and then we, find the most relevant guest for that topic, right? And a lot of these topics are kind of around, our products or our ICP's job to be done, right? Like so, we sell interact demos, so it's basically around kind of the different use cases around, our product, so that we can kind of connect our product in some way across, somewhere in the episode. These episodes are 5 minutes videos, and it takes me 20 minutes to do these episodes, which makes it also easy to get a guest because it's only 20 minutes of their time. But from a preparation perspective, it takes us about 3.5 hours per video, because we really spend a lot of time, basically finalizing the 5 questions in 5 minutes. And we just feel that this time spent is actually worth it, because you kind of get extract the right kind of insights to be able to make just a 5 minute episode. And then we work with a team of video editors that make the video short and punchy and powerful, and the brand team that actually and eventually promotes it. From a cost perspective, it doesn't cost a lot per episode. We have our recording, software subscription fee, and a couple of other tools. But honestly, any company can do it. What I would recommend is any company, that is currently looking to create demand for their product, right? Especially in emerging categories, right? This would be a very good strategy to try.
If that resonates with you, listen along. Also, check out our other episodes. You're listening to TLDR, the B2B SaaS growth podcast brought to you by Spear Growth. The goal of the podcast is to enable you, our listeners, to generate an additional $100,000 in cumulative pipeline by May 2024. To do this, we bring people who have made a real impact in their companies. They cut through the fluff and dive deep into one tactic or strategy of theirs. I'm your host Ishan. Let's generate pipeline. Hey Madhav, welcome back for another episode. The last one was amazing. I think there was a lot of hidden insights in the last one, which I kept mentioning that hey, I like specific bits of your the episode with you, which was I think that really shows in expert insights, and I'm looking forward to another one today.
Happy to dive in, man.
Perfect. So the topic for today, right? There's a specific series you've made, and you're seeing way more reach than anyone. And I think a lot of companies are creating content, so having more reach is always good. So how did you? Why did you decide? Can you just like walk me through the process of thinking about how did you get there? That hey, we need a series. Like, how did you even decide on the topic of the series before you get into the format?
I think it basically started with, so, there's a time and place for everything, right? Like, yes, I listen to 1 hour podcast episodes too. I mean, like, you kind of get to the meat of it. But there's been so many times where I've just kind of seen or heard a 1 hour podcast, and I was like, well, I didn't really get much out of it, right? Like, and I kind of wasted my 1 hour time. So obviously, I've become more apprehensive, that if I don't understand, if I feel that in the next 5-10 minutes I'm not going to get value, I'll just kind of skip past it. And then, concurrently, whenever I kind of, let's say, open my Instagram or YouTube, right, I just see these creators doing these really short 1 minute videos, which is like the engagement levels are just insane. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, there's this guy on Instagram called Body by Mark, and what he does is he just catches random people on the street who look fit, and then asks them that, how, what's their journey, with being fit, right? And, like, you should see, like, each of his videos get like over 1 million each, and like the comments,
Yeah.
people get, and anytime he reaches to anybody, like, everybody kind of knows who he is, right? Similar to that, I'm sure a lot of the listeners, and you would have seen that, there's a salary transparency creator who basically goes and asks people their
Yeah.
salary, where they live, what their job is, right? And so I think that's where the whole thing came, right? Like, this this concept of snack insights. Like we see that all the time. We see snippets of like somebody's interview, which is kind of like the 80-20 of the interview, right? And it's so powerful. You save it, you share it, all of that. So we want to go with that let's kind of cut the fluff big
Yeah.
time and just get to the 80-20 real quick, right? Like that's the approach. And our approach really was based stemming on the fact that the goal for doing this was to add to our demand creation efforts, right? Like try to bring in interactive demos to everyday topics of our ICPs, right? And basically understand how they kind of fit in, but also kind of share insights, or like maybe uncover insights from some of the best growth operators in the world, best sales and
Hmm.
marketing folks in the world, um, and kind of unlock that for the rest of the world. So one big problem in our world right now is just that if you need to get information, a lot of times the answers are already there in a lot of people's head, but it's just not available online to see, right? And when you see, like again, the 80-20 also applies in the whole podcasting world, that certain people who talk a lot on LinkedIn get majority of the
Yeah.
podcast opportunities. And there's like these operators that are actually doing the work and
Yep.
like really busy, right? They're the ones that hardly get any kind of attention, right? So we went with that approach. We're going to look at some of the best companies, look at what they're really good at. And then we went with that, hey, we're going to take 5 questions in 5 minutes, right? And basically wrap up the episode.
Wow.
So if somebody even invests 5 minutes, like, well, our goal is that they get value, but if they didn't, it's not like they wasted an hour; they just wasted 5 minutes. And I think what it also allows us to do, the 5 minutes and 5 questions, is it's not just a 5 minute episode; it's also 1 minute per question. So it allows us much bigger platforms for reach. You can go for TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube Shorts, right? And go super wide. Like everybody can watch 1 minute video. And the general observation that has been there is that a webinar that's an hour long, or a podcast that's an hour long, let's say you get one visitor for that, right? Comparably, for that one, for a 5 minute episode, you'd get 100. And then for a 1 minute episode, you'd get 1,000 viewers, right? And that basically operates our philosophy. Like, how can we reach as many people as possible? How can we deliver the right kind of message to all of these
Yeah.
folks? So that was really just the thinking around it. And the name GTM on the go basically came because, whenever you
Yeah.
go kind of to coffee shop, right? Yeah, sometimes you just want a coffee on the go. And so we're like, well, let's make it GTM on the go.
I, I love the first principles approach. So you basically, just summarizing what you've said, right? You're basically reducing friction. You made it more shareable. The 1 minute format, so the 5 minute video divided into 1 minute questions approximately, unlocks more platforms. And I mean, it's obvious if you place it in publish it in one place versus five, there's a difference. And then you can just there's no penalty of watching it if you don't get a lot of value, very very little, right? So that's very smart. It's very first principles driven. Interesting. You mentioned that you also want to add interactive demos to the general conversations in your ICP. So how is this really like going to help with that, if I had to?
So, like when you're kind of doing these kind of demand creation efforts, right? It's very easy to kind of go super wide in the ICP, right? Like
Yeah.
let's say, for example, ICP is a product marketing manager, and we're an interactive demo tool, right? So ideally, you want to kind of keep topics that are kind of around that sphere, that jobs to be done, right? So you don't want to go and be like, how to get a leadership role as a product
Yeah.
marketer, or hey, how to kind of get your first job as a product marketer, because those are too distant from like the core jobs to be done. So what we take is like the things that are there in that jobs, right? Like things like, how do I improve website conversions, how do I make better sales content for my sales team, right? How do I kind of give better demos, how do I understand my prospects better, right? And within that, there is somewhere or the other, there's a use case or a way to plug interact demo. So usually one out of the 5 questions is somewhere around that. So I would go either ask for something like, what's your opinion about interact demos, or I would ask like, how do interact demos fit into this strategy for you, or have you tested out interactive demos, right? So these are all different ways to kind of go one level underneath and say that, okay, there is a particular use case. So sometimes there might be a use case, sometimes there might be an opinion, sometimes there might be a suggestion, sometimes there might be a success story. But it all kind of leads to converting that demand into something that kind of converts into pipeline for us.
I really like that one question that you've added. That's something that's definitely missing from our format. Like TLDR and GTM on the go, this podcast are similar in a lot of the concepts. The one thing that it ours really misses is that one question that you've added. So that's actually a very, very strong insight for me. Uh, one question on the topic again, right? So let's say you said GTM on the go. Why not CRO on the go? Why not sales on the go? Because I think, is it just because, okay, there are multiple use cases across sales and marketing, and GTM is something that encompasses all of it, or like how did you decide GTM?
Yeah, so for us, it's like we basically service the early and the mid stage journey of a buyer,
Hmm.
which basically means the early journey of the buyer is a marketing use case, mid stage journey is the sales use case. So we sell to both those personas. And when you think about sales and marketing, you kind of think about, go to market. That's kind of we needed a series that basically addresses both these personas. So I couldn't. I mean, yes, I could have gone for a sales use case or a marketing use case,
Yeah.
right? But there's like that's one of our positioning. Like we sell across the organization, so that's why I chose GTM because it addressed our personas.
Also, that's what I love when I'm speaking with you, right? There's all these hidden nuances which only uncovered when I'm able when we ask and discuss that's amazing. Okay, so you're like, I think 9 episodes into it. This week will be the 10th episode, right? So what was the hypothesis going in? Like, what did you want to see to understand? Is it going in the right direction? Is it resonating, or anything? And what are you seeing?
Yeah, so I basically went in, going that, okay, we're going to talk to some of the people that don't get a lot of the spotlight, but are actually doing amazing work in their
Mhm.
companies and try to uncover, insights that Chat GPT can't answer, insights that are not available easily
Yeah.
online, like go deep into a topic. So, our initial assumption was that we're going to take like 4 or 5 open-ended questions. We're going to take a topic and then we'll go break it apart into that 5 questions. But I think what I realized was that when we went with open-ended questions, we never used to go deep enough into the topic. So from my perspective, it's easy. I don't have to prepare much. I have these bunch
Yeah.
of open-ended questions. I can ask that and I can get and so it's quick to produce the interviews, but it's not getting to the meat of the episode. So over time, what I started doing was, started kind of taking a topic and like going like super deep into it, right? Like, looking at it from my own lens, my own, like potential challenges that I face in my work, right? Or I started looking at it from their angle, what they've achieved. So I think that was one thing that actually allowed us to kind of get those deep insights. So actually, I mean, like, I'm not going to name who, but like you can actually see the quality of conversations getting better and better as the episodes progress. You'll start seeing that richness in the conversations increasing, but also the amount of time for pre-prep also started increasing. So I think that was one. And then the other thing was, when we started kind of reaching out to guests, right? So initially it was like, hey, we're going to reach out to like this whole audience, but then we realized that everybody today
Yeah.
can give advice.
Yeah.
Okay, and everybody, so you have to be very selective about who you bring in. So we contacted a lot of folks, but then I realized that we weren't collecting insights. So we had to find a better way to find the right kind of guest who can actually talk about it from an angle that nobody's talked about.
Mhm.
So one interesting way that worked out for me was that I just I spend time scrolling through LinkedIn and I see somebody's post or somebody's work, right? And if anything interests me, I'll connect with them and then I'll ask them that, hey, can we perhaps talk around this topic? It's just going to take 15 minutes of your time, but you'll get a lot of exposure, and then I basically take that. So for example, I'll give you an example, like Tim Davidson, who is our upcoming episode guest. He, I've seen, him creating humorous videos and everything, right? And they're pretty funny, and they're different, they stand out, right? So I used to keep seeing him on my LinkedIn, and I'm like, there must be a reason why this person's doing it, right? Like, why is he adding humor into it? Let's take that question and let's go deep into it. Like, where does humor fit into his brand building
Yeah.
strategy, right? And I just went with that assumption. And when I went with, topic first, and then finding through the LinkedIn feed, and finding somebody, right, the richness of the conversations got a lot better, right? So instead of us kind of speaking to literally everybody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry, who could kind of give advice, right? We were actually talking to people who talk about this day in day out, who are just naturally comfortable to kind of chat about it. So I think that also helped quite a bit, like just selecting the right kind of guest, and also choosing the right kind of questions. And then even in terms of the questions, it's not just kind of going deep into the questions. It's also, you can look at certain questioning frameworks to get very interesting answers. So one framework that I like is six thinking hats. It's a framework that allows you to take a topic and kind of like break apart a topic in a different ways. Another one is the five whys framework, right? You could kind of go in, break a topic from very different angles, right? Or you could even kind of take a more like there's all sorts of these questioning frameworks that allow you to kind of get answers to questions that nobody's ever talked about. And I think these things, even though they're not scalable, they
Yeah.
take time, but they've helped us pretty well. Like, and you can also see the growth in terms of views when the richness of the conversation start getting better. You start seeing comments that are like, oh wow, this is amazing, I've bookmarked it. Or the number of views increase. So like, initially, let's say we are getting 15, 20 views on our YouTube
Yeah.
shorts. Now they're getting like over 500 plus views per short. Like one question per minute gets like over. So it's gradually starting to have that effect, all of these different things.
Interesting. I think that's also very. So, if I had to break it down into parts, how would you break the entire thing, the entire uh, effort or initiative into different stages, right? One is okay, finding the right guests, inviting them. Second is prep. Third is the recording. Then, like, how would you sort of divide that into stages?
Yeah, so the first is getting the right guest and the right topic for them.
Hmm.
Okay, so that takes a lot of time. And then the next thing is, once you get the guest and the right topic, figuring out the five six questions you want to ask that can drive immediate value, right? So I mean, let me just open my document and perhaps show you, maybe give you some insights on the kind of questions that can give you uh, that one. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so if, let's say, I'm gonna take let me take Andrew's episode. Yeah, so in here, right, like one question's like, I'm a salesperson, I want to
Hmm.
close more deals, I want to adapt a storytelling approach to my demos. That's the topic, right? Where do I start? Okay, so now you've got a topic that basically just gives a very immediate takeaway insight. How do you start, right? Then the second is, what's the quickest way to hook a prospect with a story during a demo, right? So now, again, you're asking for very simple takeaway insight
Yeah.
that they can watch the video and they can take it away, right? Or, something like, what's the most effective question you can ask to uncover, you know, like a certain problem in a topic, right? From a prospect, right? So now you've got the exact
Yeah.
question that you can use in your calls, right? It's these questions that kind of get that snack insight. You could also just say that, hey, walk me through your process of how you kind of let's say build something, right? And then it's like a 3-minute answer with multiple nuances, but then you kind of confuse the listener. But they're like, well, there's many takeaways, but I want one takeaway that gives me directions how to do it, right? So that's why the questions are very
Yeah.
important. So there's the sitting down and actually taking the topic and asking questions. Usually what I do is I will kind of record, and like get the list of, like try to see what kind of questions I can ask, right? Then I will run it through six thinking hats questioning framework. So for that, I might use like a chat GPT prompt or something, just kind of run my questions through a particular questioning framework to see if there are any other potential perspectives that I could kind of see, right? And then through that, we'll find, some more questions. And then ultimately it kind of boils down to those five questions that that cover the full cycle of that topic, get actionable insights and all of that. So that's the second piece, like getting the questions. Now once you've gotten, and usually we don't do five, we basically do like 7 8 questions,
Yeah.
because sometimes you might have a question that might not have a good answer. Sometimes you might have a topic that is too broad to be covered in one question, so then you split it into two, right? So usually 8 questions. And the third thing is, once the recording is actually done, how do you kind of you know
Hmm.
like make this a compact conversation? How do you make sure the right things are highlighted, right? So then what I do is, right after the recording, I would create like a quick loom video, for the so it can be anywhere around 20 to 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So the recording is 20 25 minutes, because the guest can go on
Sorry,
sometimes and
how
all of
long
that,
is the
right?
recording
um,
usually?
and so the 20 25 minutes then I give to the video editor, and I give
Got it.
them my
Yeah.
notes that, listen, right after the episode, you just have
Of
like all
course.
of the
Yeah. Yeah.
memories. So you're like, these are some interesting angles we talked about, so I want you to take these 5 questions and these angles and make sure you include it. Now it's their job to basically take like a 5 minute answer by
Yeah.
somebody and distill it down to less than 60 seconds, right? So that's a very time consuming job, where you just need to keep going in, kind of start looking and looking at the content. Once they kind of finalize the content, you also have to make the content a
Wow.
little bit uh, I'd say like interesting for the viewer. So what we tend to do is we use b rolls, like the like, I don't know if you know, right? Like, if you're talking about LinkedIn, so it'll show a LinkedIn logo, or like people in a conference talking, all of that, right?
Yeah.
We then it's those small
Yeah.
things. There's also like our branding and all of that. And then once the episode goes out, that's the fourth part, is promotion of that, right? So usually for the promotion, what we do is we will send over this Google Drive with the 1 minute clips to
Hmm.
the guest as well. Be like, hey, feel free to use it, right? We will kind of promote it from our own personal profiles, the founder handles, my handle, employee handles. We'll share it through our company page, and then we'll just see how things kind of take off, right? And so, normally what tends to happen is that some episodes where you felt this could have been a good episode actually doesn't do that well. And some episodes that were like whatever, but then they actually ended up doing fantastic. But I mean, the point for us right now is just that, are we getting a better reach than webinars or long form videos? And the answer for that is for sure yes. And when we look at our overall impressions and views for GTM on the Go, it's very hard to ignore why this shouldn't be a big part of our strategy. Like, it's genuinely having an impact. You see our sales conversation, someone might come and be like, oh, I saw your episode, and I was like, let me just check out Story Lane, and then we basically got a deal. Sometimes. Yeah, so I mean, it's been running for about 9 to 10 weeks, and we've actually for sure seen, like, there have also been cases where it's like
Wow.
they saw an
That's already
episode,
started
right, and then
happening in
they
within the first
basically,
nine episodes.
dropped me a DM saying that, man, Storyline looks cool, right? Do you guys do this, right? They might have a question, and I'll pass it over to the sales team. But the goal here is that the story lane brand is going out there, not just from our own account, not just from our guests account, right? It's like reaching such a wide audience, and there's such a wide audience that's willing to consume it. Like, it's just a minute, like you spend 2 hours on LinkedIn, a minute is nothing, right?
Yeah.
And I always, like I always tell people that when you think about LinkedIn, right, like people just get very demoted when they see, oh, my post just got 100 impressions. But think of it like this, man. If you're in a room with 100 people and you got 100 people's attention to just speak for a minute, right? Like, that's a big deal. And if it gets 3,000 impressions,
Yeah.
you've basically filled like half a stadium. I mean, you're doing a fantastic job there.
Yep.
So it just, yeah, I mean, it ends up working out for us.
Yeah. No, I love that. So I think we've covered the entire process end to end, from exactly how you find a guest to the amount of time you spend on it, on just finding topics, and then also the editing stuff. So what does the entire team look like? So it's you and the editor. Is there anyone else also that works on this?
So no, so basically we tried different things. I tried, somebody kind of owning the, figuring out the questions and finding the guest and everything. But ultimately, it has to be the person who's interviewing has to be the person that has to do all of this, because you probably have the most context.
Yeah,
You've kind of reached out to the guest. You have, you can kind of bring in, like your own perspective. Like the quality of
yeah,
questions become better because you own the initiative. So I basically kind of handle, reaching out to the guest or, creating the questions. But once the recording is done, I just share it out with the web editor, sorry, the video editor, and then the video editor will edit it, and then they will come back, and then sometimes their edits might not have covered the right insights, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
they only have 60 seconds to so sometimes I might pop in there, but like really after that, our brand team takes over. They basically kind of take this and then try to amplify it everywhere. So like another thing that we're doing is, I mean, you could repurpose this in so many places. We might have, let's say this one time we did an episode about ICP research, which had some
yeah.
very interesting conversation. So like we took that ICP research, we put it in our ICP research blog post, right? Like, hey, you can kind of find something there. We also sometimes take the Riverside recording. So we also use Riverside for it. And we take the recording, and we're right now thinking of creating something like a backstage
Behind the
access
scenes.
or behind the scenes, where the raw recording is kind of shared as a podcast episode for the people who want to kind of go deep into it, who have the willingness to kind of spend 20 minutes on that. Or let's say they've seen the trailer of the 5 minutes, but they want to get the full
Yeah,
Shazam. So they're like, they could kind of go for it. So it's a lot of then promotion from the brand team, and I think that is ultimately like the goal, right? Like like my job is to create the content, and now the brand's team's job is like how can we kind of get this as many impressions, get the storyline word out, get this the kind of
yeah.
advocacy from the guest, all of those different things, and yeah, it's been paying
Nice. And
dividends so
then, so
far.
what's your tech stack like? So there's a Riverside, and then there's one video editing software. Is there anything else that you need for this?
So, I mean, I'll tell you. First is I use LinkedIn to find the folks, reach out to them, right? Not really a tool, but whatever, right? The second is I use this tool called Text Blaze. Now, what that is it's kind of like it's a keyboard shortcuts tool. So the thing is that there's so many different parts of this entire process, right? Like, for example, reaching out to a guest, introducing them about GTM on the go, and then scheduling a time, right? And all of these
Yeah.
messages are always the same. So I basically created like some 10 shortcuts for all of these things, which minimizes the work on my
Nice.
end. So, whenever I'm kind of reaching out to a guest, I would just, add the text place shortcut, hit send so it reaches out. If they accept it, I would, add the scheduling shortcut, and then they schedule a
Nice.
time through my calendar.
Yeah.
So I also use Calendly for scheduling. Once that's done, Riverside is where we kind of record it. Once the Riverside
Yeah.
recording is done, right, it's basically kind of sent to the video ed. So we work with a freelance video editor who basically kind of does this for us, right? I don't know what they use. They
Yeah.
might be using some sophisticated tool. We've also tried different tools in the past.
Yeah.
We've tried Descript and all. They can also do the job, but yeah, I mean, these guys bring in some additional value. So they kind of edit it out and everything. And then I've got another, keyboard shortcut to kind of send the Google Drive links and the YouTube link
Hmm.
to the guest, right, when the promotion is done, right? Because these are all like necessary things. And then I think in this entire process, like I use ChatGPT for the
Yeah.
questioning frameworks, right? And I can also kind of like, my questioning framework can be sometimes like, here's a topic, here are the
Yeah.
questions I've thought about, right? Now imagine if you're Joe Rogan, right, and you had to apply the six thinking hats questioning framework. How would these questions evolve? How would we cover this topic differently? And you'd be surprised the kind of responses I get from ChatGPT. So there's a fair bit of ChatGPT involved in like
Yeah.
identifying the right question to get that compact, concise insight. Like I've realized that when you look at these salary transparency and the body my mark, the questions they ask, it looks easy, but it's not. Like, I mean, they've probably worked like hours and days and weeks to find those kind of questions that can get that insight. So yeah, so I think ChatGPT there, and also when I promote the episode, like I would basically take the transcript and then put that inside copy. I add my perspectives and ask it to create a LinkedIn post for me. Of course, it creates the first draft, then I edit it and everything. But it's just, I think that's I'm guessing that's the entire tech stack. I don't think there's anything
What
else.
was the? I think I recognize the rest, but what was the one where you copy pasted? Is it called Dex Plays or what? Like, what's the?
No, no, no. It's called text
Okay, got
plays.
it,
So
got it.
text
Okay,
plays.
uh, perfect. So I think, is there anything that I should have asked which I didn't? Because I think we covered a lot. I really like the ChatGPT prompt that you've also shared.
Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else we've covered. I think in terms of like, there's also a pre-step before I reach to the guests and topics, which is kind of like identifying the kind of topics I want to cover, right? Like, so for
Yeah,
example, for sales and marketing folks, there could be lots of different topics, right? But now, for example, if let's say I do an episode about, how to do outbound sales, right? Like that, I mean, that's everyone's covered it. Like, what else are you doing, right? But identifying some more trending topics, it's kind of like, how is this person using intent based selling to go 150% over their quota, right? Like, intent based selling is kind of a thing that's popped up in the last 3-4 years, right? So initially it's a lot of the topics basically generate from either through LinkedIn or through sales demos and seeing the conversations that are happening there. Sometimes it might pop in from somewhere else, and then I basically record. And the general process there usually is that when you have to record an episode, right? And at that time you're supposed to kind of think about a topic, you will never get it because it's too much pressure immediately. But usually what works better is that if you can, whenever like let's say you're at the
yeah,
gym and you suddenly get an idea, you record it, right? Or you're somewhere else, you have these spurts of creativity that come in, and then you basically collect all of those ideas. And now at this point we have like 100 plus ideas, right? So we can pick and choose
yeah,
whenever we know that the next episode recording needs to be done, right? So that makes it easier to have a great topic and great
nice.
episode every single week, versus like, oh my god, the next week I don't have a guest, I need to think of a topic, and then it's just chaos and madness there. So I think that works. And honestly, this is kind of like a very big learning that actually came from
Oh,
Coldplay's. I don't know if you've ever seen their album making process, but if you listen to Coldplay and if you see that they've been taking out great albums year on year and year and year, right? And it's not because they're the most talented individuals out there. It's more like that Chris, who's the front man of Coldplay, whenever he gets a song idea, even if it's at 3 a.m. in the night or if he's pooping, he would open his recording software on iPhone and record it immediately, right? And at this point, he has something like 2,000, 3,000 potential song ideas in there. So then when they actually sit down to record an album, they actually have like this long list of ideas that they can expand onto. And so, out of the 2,000 ideas, right, like just 10 make it to the album, right? So it just goes to show that kind of a creative process,
yeah,
what it takes to create like this chart topping hit, right? It's not that you're just brilliant and every song you write is going to be brilliant.
yeah.
So it's kind of like that.
Perfect. This was actually very, very insightful again. So, if you had to give a very quick um, elevator pitch for Story Lane, could you just do that? Yeah. What would that look like?
Yeah, Story Lane is an interactive demo tool for sales and marketing folks, like discussed. It basically helps you kind of improve your website conversions. It helps you close more deals. It helps you have better conversations with your prospects. Just mainly because I think today's buyers, just don't have the patience, or nor should they have the patience to kind of wait to access the product only after giving their credit card details, only after paying, only
Yeah.
after signing up and everything. They want to see it right away. They want to experience it, right? And so we basically tend to put this into three words, which is like show, don't tell, right? And that's the kind of crux of the situation today. And so yeah, so storytelling helps you create interact demos in 10 minutes. And the good thing is it just takes 10 minutes. The tech is incredibly easy to implement, and it's 100% free.
I love that. Thank you so much for doing this again, Madhav. This there were so many small insights that I always get, like the prompt that you share is something I might just steal from you and use it. That was incredibly useful. Thank you so much, Madhav, for this. Thank you for listening to the TLDR podcast. In case you're wondering, Spear Growth is a marketing agency. We help B2B SaaS companies like yourself with ads and SEO. Check out our website at speargrowth.com. That is SPEARGROWTH.com. Just like this, every episode starts with a 1-minute summary of what we discuss. Pick the next episode to listen to based on what you can implement right away. And after you implement any of these tactics and see an impact, we'd appreciate you drop us a note on podcast@speargrowth.com.